Hi everyone, and welcome. Hope everyone is having a good day. All right, so this is what I've come up with for today, and it's I don't know if you could call it a game or it's just a thing where effectively you have to take an image and you drag it and you need to match it up to the right image. So if you put it on the wrong one, it shouldn't accept it. But if you put it on the right image, it'll accept and it'll form the full image, right? So, and that's kind of the basic premise of what we're going to be doing. Right, let me put that over there. All right. Cool, so I have an H1 that says match these images. And what let me just quickly grab, I'll just have this kind of add a font and a background color. Then let's have a look, and I'm going to have something called a class of, let's call it image container. And what I want is I want to have a left section of an image and the right section of an image. Let me just quickly create. So inside of here, what we can do is let's have div class of image left. And we'll have a div with class of image right. So we'll have the left half and the right half. Now, let's set the image container to have a width of 300 pixels. Oh. And yeah, that's fine for now. We'll just have a width of 300 pixels. They will have image left with a width of 150 pixels. And we'll give it a height of 150 pixels. Okay, and we'll do the same for image right. And then we need to get a background image. Let me just quickly copy the background image. So now it's created two images next to each other, which isn't quite what we want. And we also want these to be placed next to each other. But we'll get to that. The problem we have, so if I set this now to have a background size of cover, we get two images that are the exact same size. And what we actually want is we want to get half of the image there and then the other half on the other side. So instead of having a background size of cover, as we often do when we have background images, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the size to 200%. And I'll set this size to 200%. Now I need to set the position because you can see that it's not quite half. And so what I can do is I can set my background position. So I'll say and this one, because it's the image left, I'll say that I want it to be positioned at the top left. And on the other side, oh, I want it to be top right. So there we now have half the image, which cuts in the middle of our donkey, and an image on the other side. Okay. Now what I want to do as well is I want to have a container that I can drop the image into, or a holder, something where I'm going to be able to move this image right and put it somewhere, right? So I want to be able to drag and drop it into some sort of holder. So I'm going to call it, have a div with class of image holder. And my image holder, I'm going to have a border of 1px dashed black. And I'll give it a width of 150 pixels and a height of 150 pixels. Great. So that's now appearing here, down here. I want to actually take these images and I want to position it absolute. And later, I'm just going to jumble them up around on the page. So I'm going to just take this image right, and I'm going to set it to position absolute. And I'm going to give it a, let's say, a left of 300 pixels. Let's actually make that bigger. Let's make that 500 pixels. And we can give it a top of 100 pixels. Okay. I can also now just quickly should be able to set this to just say display flex. And then it'll place the that holder beside the image. So now what I want to do is I want to be able to drag that. But as you can see, I currently can't just drag and drop it there. Let me also just set this holder. I'm going to set it to have a background of white. Okay, so you know where to drop it in. So you're going to take that and drop that there. To be able to make an element draggable, I need to actually set it in the HTML to be draggable. So I'm going to set this here to be draggable equals true. So now I can drag it around the page. I can't do anything with it. It doesn't move anywhere, but I can now at least click on the image and drag it around the page. Okay. Now, the next thing, I'm going to have to start working with JavaScript now, and we can start looking at how we can take the image right, and when it hovers over the thing, then it gets set there. Okay, so let me get the image right. So I'll create a const for that. And then I will say that I also need to get the holder. That, and I'll call this image holder. And now there's an event which I can listen for, which is called drag over. And so I can say that image holder add event listener. And I'm going to listen for the drag over event. And then there'll be a function. There'll be an event as a parameter. And I can then say that I want to have this image right appended there. So I'm going to say event dot. Well, let me quickly log. I'll just quickly log the event dot targets and show you what's happening there. Event dot target. So now if I take this, let me just quickly clear that. You can see it now logs. It logs it in the console, right? So it logs where that event has happened. And you can see it's actually run quite a lot in the console because it runs constantly as you're hovering over it, right? So I don't want to do too much of that logging. But what we can do is we can say that we want event.target to append image right. So now, when I click it, doesn't work. Good. I don't know why it's not working now. Let me try. Right, although that won't give me quite what I want. That's just added there. That's not what I want. I wanted to append it. So and I want to append image right. If I look here, let me have a look at my console. Why this isn't working? It's because I need to change. The problem is that it is appended, but it's still absolute positioned outside of there. So I need to also change. So I can set here that I want. Oh, I want image right dot style dot position equals static. So now when I drag it over, it then changes its positioning to be static. And so it's now positioned inside of here instead of still being inside this element, but positioned off to the right. Okay. So that's working with one image. We can add multiple images. So I'm just going to add a class of donkeys here. And I'll use that for my image left and image right. So we'll have a class of donkeys. I'll take that background image out there. And take it out of there. Okay, so now we have the donkeys being applied. We could have different ones. I had beach and I get taxi. So let me quickly grab those. All right, so these are just adding as background images to these things. So there's the donkey, the beach and a taxi. Okay. And if I drag those, well, the problem is that we are only targeting the first of these elements. So we're going to need to start using some query selector all now. Okay. So let's say that we want the image rights, the image holders, and then we'll, instead of query selector, we'll use query selector all. Query selector all. And there I've got image holder, image right. And then I want to also just, because now there's any number of elements with the image right property, I actually want to be able to know which image is actually being dragged. So I'm going to call let image drag. So I'm just going to create this variable here, and I will work with that in a bit. Okay. So currently all of the images are stacking on top of each other, which is not what we want. We want them to be randomly placed around. So I will do that now quickly. So I'm going to say for the image rights, I'll run a loop. Say for each image. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a random number, and I'll set the top to this random number. Okay, so I'll say let random number equals, and then we can use math.floor, and we'll say math.random to get a random number, and we'll times that random number by, I'm going to create a series, like a group, like a set of values that it can be between. So I'll say 300 minus 50, and then you say plus 50. And then I will assign that to be the image.style.top is going to be this random number. Px. Okay, so now each of them are getting a different. I can maybe make this just a bit broader so we can see it a bit easier. Right, you can see that they're now being placed kind of randomly here on the page. Unfortunately, we haven't set the left, and so they're still like kind of a bit jumbled on top of each other. So let me make that 300 plus 50 again. And I'll just change the value of this random number to be a new random number. This time a bit wider, because this is going to be our left, so we have kind of more horizontal space to work with. So I'm going to make that between 700 and 350. Okay, and then I'll set that image.style.left to be the random number again. All right. So now you can see that I've set a random for the top and a random for the left. And when I refresh, you can see they move around and are placed randomly around the page. Okay, so that's kind of getting the kind of random jumbled effect. Do something like that. All right. So when I also want to check that when an image gets dragged, I know which image is being dragged. So I can add an event listener for that, and I'll say that for each image, let's add an event listener. and we'll listen for drag start. So that's when I start dragging it. And then we'll run a function. And I'll console.log high. Okay, for now. So now if I look in my console, clear that. Right. Now, as soon as I click and start dragging, it says high. Click, start dragging, it says high. Click, start dragging, and then it says high. Okay. So now we can know which element is being dragged. We can change the value of this let here that we have, this image dragged, and we'll set image dragged to equal the item which is being dragged. I mean the image, whoops. Okay. So then I know I can console.log image dragged. Have a look in the console, clear that. And now it tells me that I've just dragged the donkeys one, right? Just dragged the taxi one. And I've just dragged the beach one. Okay, so it's telling me which image has been dragged. And now what I want to do is I have this event listener here, this drag over. And that only works, well, it's not working at the moment because I now have to loop over my image holders. And then what I want to do is I want to test whether this image which is being dragged matches up with what it's being dragged onto. Okay, so let me just say image holders dot for each and I'll say that for each holder we need to add an event listener, which is that drag over event listener function since for the event. Could have actually just copied that. Anyway, we'll come back to that. And we'll say that if, let me first do something in the HTML before we get to that. What I want to do is I want to create a data attribute. So we're going to say that this right has a data attribute data image equals donkeys. And we'll apply that also to the holder. And then the same here for this one will say beach. And beach. And then taxi and taxi. Okay, so then we can say and test that if image dragged dot dataset dot image is equal to event dot target dot dataset dot image, right? Then let's just log that out and we'll see what it says. Console.log. Okay, so let's have a look at the console. Clear. If I drag the donkey, it now says donkeys over there. And right, if I take the taxis, I hover it over the taxis. If I hover it over anywhere else, it doesn't do anything, doesn't say. It's only when I hover it over taxi, then it starts going. Same with beach. If I take beach and I hover over taxi, nothing happens. But as soon as I hover it over the beach, then it works. So it's testing whether the data attribute on the image that I'm busy dragging is equal to where the event has happened, and the event happens on the image which has been dragged over, and then it's checking if those two are the same. And then I can just add this append and this style position static. And now it's not working. And why is that? So if those are equal, it's yes. It's image shouldn't be appending image right. It's image dragged. There's a problem with my copy paste there. So now I'm accessing image dragged. So now when I hover that, nothing happens until eventually I hover over the one that matches. And the same with beach. Nothing will happen until eventually there. And there's my donkey. All right. So I don't think I have more to show here. I had something which I added, which was I had like a rotation transform. I mean, you can have a look. I'll quickly do it. Right, so it's basically this. Except here I was going that it just needs to be 360. And I had transform, rotate. Can have a look and see if we like this. I don't know. I left it out of the original thing that I it's plus 360, isn't it? Okay, let's make it between say between 360 and 50 degrees, right? And dig, not pixels. Thank you very much. And now we get the kind of an even more jumbled view, and then we can set instead of having the position, we'll just set the transform to rotate 0 degrees. Right, so they're all jumbled up, and then if you take the, and that did not work. Typo. All right, you take it and you land it, and then kind of fixes it to be correct. Rotates it around. So yeah, I'm not sure if there's more to show here. That's kind of the basic idea of it. Hopefully the kind of the things to take away are kind of things like drag over and the drag start event, and then setting it to be draggable in your CSS, as well as kind of the if matching the data attributes. Are there any questions? Thanks very much. Sorry, I felt like today I was a bit scattered, but hopefully there were still useful bits of it. All right. If there's no more questions, then I guess we can wrap it up there. Cool. Yeah. I mean, you can start using the things like this, like draggable and the drag events, so for like drag and drop. If you're creating a dashboard and you wanted people to be able to choose the order that images appeared on a site, then you could use that and you could kind of let's have them drag. Oh, I prefer that image to the top. So there's lots of applications for the drag events. But cool. I think if that's everything, then we can wrap up there. Oh, great. Good to hear. I'm glad you'll try it by yourself. I will share the code and then you can play and experiment and try adding different things and different functionality. So you're very welcome to work with it. All right, everyone. Hope you have a good day and chat soon.